We are starting with a topic most people have to admit they're curious about. Where do we go when we die? What happens?
The best-selling book, Never Letting Go, is a healing guide on the journey through grief.
And joining us this morning is author and psychic lawyer Mark Anthony. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. It's great to be here.
I have met psychics before. I have met lawyers before. I have never met a combination in one entity such as you. How did this come about?
Well, I was born a medium because this runs in my family, and I decided to go to law school. And it's a good question because a lot of people think that the two careers are somehow diametrically opposed, but it's both about evidence. As a lawyer, what do? I present evidence to a judge or to a jury, and as a psychic medium, I have to present evidence from the other side to validate the reality of the contact.
So, talking about evidence, how do you prove that what you are when you're mediuming, when you're bridging that gap between the afterlife and the here and now? How do you really prove that you know what's happening?
What, during a reading or about the afterlife?
Because there's so many things that you read anything, a lot of things about the things are vague, what you say or what mediums or psychics say when they're interacting with somebody. It's like, well, it's suggestion, and a lot of times people say yes, even though it's not the right. So how do you prove that then with evidence, as you say?
Exactly. Well, I could say to anybody, oh, your grandmother's here and she loves you. But if I tell you what she looked like, what she died from, her favorite song, shared memories between the two of you, personality profile, detailed things that there's no way anybody could know. Funny thing, I was doing a reading for this woman recently, and I kept saying, there's something your husband wants you to remember this thing about an octopus. And that's a weird thing to come up.
Yeah.
And she starts crying on the, and I said, well, what is it? She goes, well, we lived in Belize, and we used to have this tank where we caught lobsters, and it was in our yard on the water, and one day an octopus climbed up and took a bunch of the lobsters out. And I'm like, okay, so an octopus is not the type of thing I would randomly throw at somebody. And that's an example of the type of pieces of evidence that come through from the other side. That and medical conditions. Recently, I was doing a reading and I focused on this woman. I said, type A blood, very, very important. She said, my goodness, I'm type A blood, everyone in my family is type A blood, and my father died from a disease of the blood. So that's not random pieces of information or vague generalities like they're around you, they love you, and they want you to feel upliftment or joy.
All right, so take us through that process. I know you said this is hereditary.
Yes.
Both your parents had these abilities. And so do you feel this through everybody? Like, for instance, all the people that are that were in our lives that are now deceased.
Yes.
Can you pull anybody out of our lives and find that person? I mean, how does that work?
Well, it's not texting or instant messaging.
Well, I'm just saying, so if I threw something out there, would you be able to make the connection?
What it is, I open up to frequency because everything I do as a medium involves frequency, and we are all energetically connected, not only to, are any of you guys parents?
Yes,
We're all
we
parents.
all are.
Yep.
Oh, you're all parents. Have you ever been at work or somewhere and all of a sudden you got a feeling something was going wrong with one of your kids? Yes?
You kind of wonder.
I mean, there is an intuition there.
I can tell you guys are news people because immediately, emotionally, you want to say yes, but then the logical part kicks in and says, yeah, well, but it could be something else. You have to go with your feelings. All right, that's not a fluke. And you were right every time, weren't you?
Well,
I try to think of a situation.
Yeah.
Sometimes I've worried too much. Sometimes I've worried when there wasn't a need to worry.
But when you trust your feelings and you know that something's going wrong with your child, and then you call or get a call from him or her, and you find out that you were correct. So it's the same type of thing that you're tuning into frequency. And so as a medium, what I do is when I open up to frequency, there are spirits around you who are connected to you. I mean, as thrilling as it'd be to talk to John Lennon or Jimi Hendrix or Thomas Jefferson, their motivation to talk to you is pretty limited, whereas people who love you, it's very high. So I'll pick up on people around you. Generally, the folks you want to talk to are going to come through, but what I find fascinating is when somebody you didn't expect is somebody that comes through.
Well, let's talk for a moment. You talked about how you're balanced, because I'm still fascinated with that as a medium and as a lawyer. Both derive evidence.
Yes.
Do you ever interrelate the two? Do they ever go hand in hand? Do you ever use your mediumness in your lawyerness, so to speak?
Absolutely. And we all have a skill set in life. I mean, I know some lawyers, their skill set is like being a pit bull where they're just going to rip somebody in two for $20. Mine is using my intuition and my feelings. I've used it several times, not only in client conferences, but actually in court while selecting a jury. And in one trial, it was a crime of violence. And during jury selection, prior to taking the evidence, you have to find out if you're going to have a fair and balanced, like Fox News, fair and balanced, but applied to a jury.
I don't think we use that term anymore.
And this one juror I kept zeroing in on, and I asked her, I said, have you or has anyone in your family ever been the victim of a violent crime? And she started to tremble and the tears came. And she said to me, she said, a year ago in a foreign country, my sister was murdered by an escaped mental patient. And so here I am in between feeling her sister's presence coming through and my client. And I said, and she was strangled, right? And she goes, how did you know that? So if you want to find out what happens, you're going to have to read Never Letting Go.
There is some people
and that's why you're in town right now.
Okay,
Yes.
Okay, so what do you say when people out there think, I don't buy any of this. I don't, I just don't. I don't think that there's any truth to it. That perhaps you're out there kind of tugging on people's emotions that maybe you want, that maybe you're kind of stringing for generalities, and what do you say to that?
Well, I would like to invite them tomorrow night to the Unity North Spiritual Center, and because I will be conducting a gallery reading and mediumship demonstration. But when people say, I don't believe it, nothing spiritual is supposed to be controlling. I'm not here to force my beliefs upon anybody. And let me make this very perfectly clear. I'm not for 1 second comparing myself to him. But there are people standing in the same room with Jesus that didn't believe him. So if people don't believe me, I'm good.
You're all right with that?
I'm all right with that.
All right, Mark.
Thanks,
Pleasure
Mark.
talking to you this
Yeah.
morning. Mark Anthony, the psychic lawyer, is joining us this morning, of course. We set up a link to your website, neverlettinggo.com. You can go through myfox9.com.
As Mark and as Mark mentioned, he'll be signing copies of his book tomorrow night, June 25th, at 7 o'clock at Unity North Spiritual Center. That's up in Coon Rapids. All this information, yes, on our website, myfox9.com. It is 9:22 now. We're talking about Disney